This is the signature guitar that nobody asked for. Who is George Harrison anyway? Hey everybody, welcome back to Cream City Music. I'm your host Jacob, and this is another episode of On the Bench. Today, we're taking a look at this Rosewood monstrosity. This is the Fender Rosewood Telecaster. In 1967, Roger Rossmeisl and his assistant Phil Kubicki had been wondering, could we actually make a guitar entirely out of rosewood? Gibson had already done it with the Gibson Crest, but that was a hollow body. This would be the first time somebody had done a solid body made entirely out of rosewood. Apocryphally, this guitar was originally sent to Elvis Presley, who sent it back a few months later because he said it was just too heavy. And around the same time, Fender, who had been a little bit annoyed with a certain British band being seen playing everybody else's guitars, such as Gibson, Gretsch, Rickenbacker, Hofner, said, well,
how do we cash in on the Beatles' success?
They start by sending off just a care package of amplifiers and other random goods. And they give Mr. George, I'm not going on the roof Harrison, the Rosewood Telecaster. George is on record promptly saying that he hated this guitar. Phil Kubicki even says that he had no idea if George had even used the guitar until a year later when the Let It Be film came out, where George Harrison is seen using this quite a bit for the sessions, and most famously, the Beatles' last public outing on the rooftop of Apple Corps. Now this one is a Fender Custom Shop reissue of the Rosewood Telecaster from 2007. This guitar is just a stock late 60s CBS Fender. It's the same pickups, the same three-way switch, single volume, single tone. Fender had them do this the way that necks were built in the 50s, where it is a piece of rosewood laid on top of the neck itself, eliminating the, at the time, famous Fender skunk stripe. But what makes the body so interesting is that rosewood is a dense but narrow wood. When they built the body, they had used 4 pieces of rosewood, 2 on the top and 2 on the back, and then put a very thin slice of maple in the middle. The maple's there to act as a bit of a bonding agent. Rosewood and rosewood don't necessarily adhere all that nicely. Nothing else about this has changed. It's just the Telecaster, but it's made of rosewood, and it's chambered. And it's actually quite heavily chambered if you want a little listen there. You hear that? Someone's knocking at the door. Do me a favor and let him in. The production models, which you start to see pop up in about 1970, are not nearly as chambered as George Harrison's original. These guitars were ungodly expensive by comparison to a regular Telecaster. A mapleboard Telecaster in the early 1970s would have ran you about $250, $260. This guitar would have ran you nearly $400, which is already very expensive and a little bit prohibitive. But what makes this even stranger is that Fender didn't really advertise this guitar as being a thing. In the Fender dealer catalog, this was labeled Telecaster Rosewood, nothing else. There's no indication this is a solid body guitar made entirely out of rosewood. This is just a Telecaster Rosewood. That could be rosewood board, that could be anything. But still, you see some of these things get ordered and some of them sell. These guitars drop out of the catalog in 1971, just to show back up a little bit later in late 1971, early 1972, as new Telecaster Rosewood, as if this is an entirely new model for the same very high price with no real changes yet. Now, for those of us wondering, what happened to this guitar after that? Did George Harrison use it for his solo career? No, he played this for 2 weeks and then never played it again, as far as we can tell, because it doesn't show up anywhere else. And in fact, he gives it away. A few years after his death, Olivia Harrison did purchase it back into the family estate, so that way they would have another one of George's guitars, and it is really one of the most iconic guitars of the 1960s, solely because of its connection to George Harrison and the Beatles and the rooftop concert. And if you'd like to get back to your love for the Beatles, take the long and winding road down to our website at creamcitymusic.com to check out this bad boy. And with a little help from my friends, you can help yourself to pure tone, no commentary gear demos on our channel right here with our series Tone Check. As always, I'm Jacob. I'll continue to be Jacob. And if Fender makes you a signature guitar that you don't really want, just let it be.